Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast, and welcome to our 12-day Christmas marathon, the Mediocre Marathon. Today is day 10 of the Mediocre Marathon, and today we're talking about a Chowder episode, so let's just get started.
Determined to get an electric broccoli trimmer with detachable non-electric cauliflower trimmer for Knishmas, Chowder, Mong, and Schnitzel try to make the perfect gingerbread house for Knish Crinkle. After multiple failures, Chowder chooses to dress up as Knish Crinkle and eat the bad gingerbread house to make Mung not feel like a loser. That plan also fails, but in the end, everyone's Knishmas wish comes true.
Knish Kringle kind of weirds me out. I think it's because of the way he speaks feels wrong, and I just didn't like it. But I feel like that's just kind of typical with Chowder as a show. So I just kind of have to live with it because I really did used to enjoy this show a lot when I was younger. I love jokes that can only be pulled off by animation. In this episode, Chowder is told to get into his work clothes, and instead of actually changing, he just removed his face. He took off his face like it was tape and then pasted it on his work clothes and then got to work. I really love smart ways of animated things like that where they still manage to fit a joke in while also switching what they're doing in the show. I just think that's really smart, and I really like it when animation does that. I really like Endive. She's a really fun character, and I really like the rivalry she has in this show.
As a kid, I always remembered loving whenever Chowder would have stop motion scenes, and I absolutely loved seeing them in this episode. Also, I have to thank the creators of Chowder for having this in their episode lineup instead of making it its own special that isn't technically a part of the show, Cough Cough Ed Ed and Eddie. I think this is the only Christmas special that I clearly remember watching as a kid. I literally remembered everything that happened in this episode. This might be the only time I can rant about Chowder, so I'm going to take it. This show most definitely shaped my sense of humor. Literally the whole episode I was smiling and giggling. If I really think about it, and this might be a little controversial, I feel like Chowder has the same vibe as the early seasons of The Amazing World of Gumball. Thoughts on that, Marco?
I can see the connection, and I think it makes sense.
Okay, thank you.
I would say more early Gumball, yeah. Compared to later, yeah.
Okay, thank you for confirming. Thank you for agreeing with me. Also, I actually think this is where my love for cringe, loser, pathetic, annoying little guys formed. Gorgonzola is such a little gremlin, and I love him, and I do remember loving him as a kid as well. So this episode has a similar dynamic we saw and called out in Ed, Ed and Eddie, where a girl character is romantically harassing the guy character. How do we feel about that dynamic in Chowder?
I definitely feel like it's still weird. I think it's still bad. It's just at a lesser level of bad as Ed, Ed and Eddie, because in Ed, Ed and Eddie, they really forced themselves on those three kids. And in Chowder, I think there was a one kiss in this episode that wasn't consensual. I don't remember quite exactly. It's still weird. It definitely is still bad, but it's definitely not as bad as Ed, Ed and Eddie. And I think that's where my thoughts on this lie.
Okay, yeah, I agree. I think it's important to understand that unlike the Kanker sisters, Panini isn't a one-dimensional character, and we see that in this episode. Though she has intense feelings for Chowder, she also becomes very unimpressed when he can't understand that Gazpacho was dressing up as Knish Crinkle instead of keeping on those hard eyes, which I feel like kind of redeems her character. The fact that she's not completely infatuated with Chowder, she does push back on him when he's being really dumb. Though I do agree, her cleanliness is still weird and does make me uncomfortable.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely think I can see why people would like Chowder compared to Ed, Ed and Eddie, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Because in Ed, Ed and Eddie, it's just so bad. It's just the way it's played off as jokes is just really concerning, and I really don't like it. But in Chowder, it feels a little less intense, I guess, which is why I'm still able to enjoy it somewhat compared to Ed, Ed and Eddie. So yeah.
Also, I like the fact that not only did Mung draw Schnitzel in the shower, but it's implied that he showed it to him and then promised he'd dispose of it, which he didn't. So, is this a must watch? Yes, obviously, next question. This is another Gumball situation where the show in general, in my opinion, is good, so obviously the Christmas special is good as well. I also just love when silly shows like this create their own version of Christmas. Chowder's version of Christmas fits so well with the vibe of the show, and the episode was just plain funny. But that's just my heavily biased opinion. Marco, what about you?
I would say kind of yes. I think it's definitely a good episode. I just don't think it's as strong as other Christmas episodes. I still do like this episode, and I still would recommend it for the most part. If you're not a Chowder fan, then I don't think you would enjoy this either way. So yeah, I guess I think overall I think this is a solid episode and I would still recommend it, but just with the caveat of this probably might not be for you depending on your taste in humor, I guess. Anyways, you guys, that's the end of today's Mediocre Merry-thon episode. That's episode 10. Check out tomorrow's episode. We only have 2 more of these to go before we finish the marathon. Tomorrow we're talking about Danny Phantom, so be sure to check it out tomorrow. If you want to send us a voice message on Spotify for podcasters, there'll be a link in the description to do so below. We also have social media on the description, and it's everything, so goodbye.